So Khalid was over in another country and watching these videos to stay up with the class. So, way to go, Tim. Not many people here today. 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13? There'll be more to come. So does anybody have any questions about anything that we covered so far with the two-function input validation model and all that kind of stuff? Any questions about anything at all? Hey, Karen. All right, cool. So we're pretty much done with the two-function. I'm going to send out my solution to you guys now that it's done, so you can see. So you'll have it. You'll have the code. If you ever need to implement the two-function input validation model, you'll have it for any other programs. But we're pretty much done with that. And for this week, we're going to move on. Hey, we're going to move on to lists and tuples, okay? Which are really cool. This is cool stuff. And we already talked about lists a little bit. You guys understand lists and arrays, right? Lists are pretty much arrays. But we're just going to get into more detail about what you can do with those, with lists and tuples. And this is chapter 5. You're in chapter 5 now of your online book, okay? And what is due tonight at midnight is what's called the Module 8 assignment, and it's exercise 5.1 in the DITEL and DITEL. And this is exercise 5.1. I put all of the questions right here. Okay? So what you have to do for tonight, and hopefully we'll get through, let me make this full size here. Hopefully we'll get through everything you need to know to solve all these questions today if we have enough time. So the questions are, what is wrong with, if anything, with the following statements? And there's 12 questions. And basically you just need to, what I would do is just copy this right out of the exercises. And then the easiest way is plug it right into the interactive shell in VS Code. Just type each line right in there and see if it works. Right? And then write down, if it doesn't work, what the error you get is. Okay? So I can tell you right now that none of them work. They're all going to fail. Okay? Except, yeah, they're all going to give an error of some point. That's of some kind. Okay? I can tell you that. So that's the easiest way, is to just type all this stuff in. But I'm going to go over everything so you understand it. Right now it probably looks like gobbledygook, but hopefully we'll get through everything we need for you to solve this. This is due today. Let me scroll down a little bit more here and tell you what's due. There's nothing due this Thursday. What is due next Thursday? So there's due tonight, nothing Thursday, nothing next Tuesday, but then next Thursday you have the quiz, and I think it's 25 questions. And then you have a palindrome tester. And it's called, this is the Module 8 lab. So does anybody know what a palindrome is?
Yeah.
Off the top of your head? Yeah, Wolfgang.
A word that is spelled like it's spelled one way, it says one word, but backwards it says another.
Okay, good.
Same word.
Anybody have an example?
Backwards, spells the same thing backwards,
Yeah.
like race car.
Race car, does it do that?
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't know that. Race car, let's try it. Race car.
Mom and dad are palindromes.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Taco cat.
What is it?
Taco cat.
Taco cat.
Taco cat?
I think it was maybe.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I never knew that. This is the one I know that everybody seems to use. Radar.
Oh.
There's probably a bunch of other ones. So these are all palindromes. They're spelled, I think there's if you guys ever watched The Big Bang Theory, there's something that's a really long phrase that's a palindrome. Does anybody remember that? Sheldon said it. Something, you remember?
I saw another show. Is it the robot chicken or something?
Yeah, it's some weird.
He goes off and lists like 30 of these huge sentences.
Yeah, it's a long sentence. It's a palindrome. So, so this will be due next Thursday, and you need to write a little program that will test if the string you type in is a palindrome, it's just gonna say true or false or something like that. But we're gonna be using all the functions that we're gonna learn in the next few days on how to do that. And the good thing of this program has got a lot of error checking in it, because you could type in this and it should work. And this pin's going out. You could type in a capital R, a space, a comma, a lowercase a couple more spaces, a capital D, an A, a dollar sign, an R, and a space. That could be your whole string. This could be your string. And this is gonna get rid of all blank spaces and punctuation marks and convert everything to lowercase. And then this is a palindrome. Okay, so it's gonna do some error checking. And we're gonna get to how to do that kind of easily. How to do this kind of stuff. So that's what's ahead for the next couple weeks. And we have a little. We'll see how far we get today. But I don't know if you guys want to take a picture of this or not. But this is what we're going to start learning about today. So this will be what's due tonight. And if we get through everything in class today, you'll be able to answer it. If not, you'll have to look up some of these things. But they're due tonight at midnight. They're all false. They're all going to give you an error.
I was gonna say, any of them, like, does any of it work? 'Cause I
No.
didn't find it.
No, none of it works. You're going to get an error.
I thought it was a trick question.
You're going to get an error. You're going to get an error on everything. You just need to know why you're getting an error. Okay. So I don't know why they do that. This book is all about what's wrong. It's like every quiz question is what's wrong with this. But we're going to go over this right now. So cool. Let me let everybody. Yeah, make sure you guys log in. And we will dive in here. Okay, and this is what's due next Thursday. So here's our objectives for today. We're gonna work down this. It's a big list. Don't panic. We're just gonna start working down a line at a time and see how far we get. As long as you guys are following everything. Hope I got a good pin today. Is this one good? Yeah, this one's alright. Alright. Cool. So, sequences, okay? Lists and tuples are also called sequences. Anytime you have an order, a list of something that's in a sequence, that's separated by commas, that's called a sequence, okay? So, we're going to start with a very simple list called numbers, and we're going to use this a lot in this exercise. So there's my variable numbers, and square brackets make it a list. It's also a sequence. 3, we'll say 4, 5. Okay. Okay. So this is a list, and it's also what we call a sequence, because it's a sequence of numbers separated by commas. Okay. What do we also call this thing? There's another word. It starts with an A.
Array.
Array. Yeah. This could be called an array too. Gosh, this pin's drying out. All right. So this is a sequence. It's a variable called numbers, but it contains a lot of information. It's not just like saying x equals 5. Now we're saying numbers equals this list that has 5 elements in it. Okay. So each one of these things is called an element. a list can store homogeneous or heterogeneous data. Does anybody know what homogeneous means? Go ahead, Abigail, I haven't called on you yet today.
It's when it's all the same type?
Yep. Homogeneous is all the same type. Genius, like homogenized milk. You ever heard about that? Homogenized milk. That's where they blend in all the fat and everything, so it's all pure white. You know, if you've ever seen like raw milk, has anybody ever drank raw milk?
I've never
Seen
drank
it.
it, I've seen it.
It's separated. There's curds and whey on top, and then there's this liquid underneath, right? Like I've had it before. They say it could be unsanitary, you know, if they don't do it properly. But then they mix it all up and they make it homogenized. That's what they. So this means all the same type. So is this a homogeneous list or a heterogeneous list?
Homogeneous?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Homogeneous, homogeneous, yeah, because it's all
no,
integers, right? Yeah. So we could also make a heterogeneous list. We can call it, let's call it H1, just for kids. And we could make a list and call it 1, and then we could put Joe in here, the string, and we could put 3.5 in here. This would be heterogeneous. It's got different types. It's got an integer, a string, and a float, right? You can store either homogeneous or heterogeneous data. Okay, so how do I access elements in a list? Do you guys remember? What's it called?
Is it for I and range? Or-
Yeah, that's one way, yeah. And what would I be? What are the things that we use little numbers under here called? Do you guys remember?
Index?
Indexes, right. So we access elements with I'm gonna say indices. And a single indice is an index, okay? So if I wanted to print out the number 3, for example, how would I do it? I would say print numbers,
The first index is 0, right?
right?
Okay.
So this first index is 0. So these are the indexes, indices. This one's 1. This is 2, 3. This is 4. So how would I print out the number 3? Number sub. I have to put something in square brackets here. I have to put the index for the third element. 2. So this is going to print out 3. Okay? Hey. Okay, so this is how we access elements in a list, by using an index. Okay? So how would I print out the number 1 in this homogeneous list? Go ahead, Nicole.
You have to print is that what it's called, H1?
H1,
Okay.
for homogeneous 1.
Yeah, you have to print homogeneous 1, and the little brackets.
Sub, you could call that sub, yeah.
Sub, you put 0.
Yeah, sub 0. So it would be print H1 sub 0 is how we would say that. Okay? So it would be print, if I just wanted to print the first element, it'd be H1 sub is the square bracket 0.
Oh.
When I say sub, I'm saying, these are also called, you could call these subscripts. But I would say H1 sub 0 is the way I would say that. That's the way computer scientists would say it. H1 sub 0. Okay? All right, good. Okay, so we know how to access those, but we haven't looked at using a negative index to access the end of a list. Okay? So I'm going to move to the other board, and hopefully I've got a better pin over here. Okay, let's get back with our our names here. That's not bad. Okay, we got names equals the list 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, what we haven't learned yet is we have indices that start with 0. 1, sorry, these commas are not very pretty. They kind of look like numbers now. So that's 1, the index, 2, 3, and 4. We can also use negative indices to start from the back and go forward. This would be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Okay, so you can use negative indices to get to the end of the list, right? So how would we print out the 5 using a negative index? What would that be? Wolfgang? How would I print out this right here? Print names of what? -1,
Yeah.
right? This is going to print out the 5, okay? Okay, so you can go negative too, which is kind of cool. So you could start at the end and go backwards. And you don't really have to know the length of this list. -1 always gets you the end. Okay? But how would I get the length of this list? There's a built-in function that returns the length of any list. It's up there on the board. It's called the len function, L-E-N, and it returns the length. Meaning, what does the length mean,
The whole list.
right? But it means how many, what are these individual things called?
Indices.
Element.
Elements.
Oh, elements, yeah.
Elements, yeah. I'm gonna say length of a sequence, because you can use it on a tuple too. Okay, so if I said print len of names, what do you think that's gonna print? How many elements are in there?
5.
5, right? Yeah. So there's a built-in function called len. You don't have to import a module or anything. It's already there. You can just type len and then the name of the list.
It just tells you how many elements are in it?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
I thought it printed out the list separated by commas and everything. Okay.
No, there's another way to do that though. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're working our way down this list here. So we can determine a list length using the len function, okay? Now my next one is lists are mutable. What does that mean? You guys remember mutable and immutable?
Able to be changed?
Able to be changed. Excellent, good. So you can change a list. Okay, so what does that mean? Could I change the 5 here to something else? How would I change the 5 to a 10, for example? Can anybody tell me? Angel, you want to try?
I'll just say add more elements.
Okay, so I want to change this to a 10. I want to put a 10 in here. So how would I do that? First of all, I need to access the 5, right? So I need to say names sub what? I could do it 2 ways. I could say sub 4, or I could say sub -1 equals 10, like that. Simple, right? I'm just pointing to the 5th element, which is the index 4, and I'm assigning it the value 10. That's all you gotta do. So lists are mutable, means you can change a list. Okay? Some sequences are immutable, and you probably didn't realize this, but strings are also lists in a way. So if I have S and I set it equal to the string hello in lowercase, this really looks like this in a way. It's going to have H E L L O. It kind of looks like this, where this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So let's try that. I guess I don't need those. I'm going to pull up. VS Code here. Let me make it bigger for you guys. Okay. Just going to do everything in the terminal here now. So I'm going to type Python, and let's say S equals hello. So now I have my string S, and if I say S sub 0, I'm going to get the H back. Right? Does that make sense? So this is really like a list in a way. How about if I say S sub minus 1? That should give me the last letter, right? If I'm using the negative index, and it does. So can I say, I want to change the first H to a capital H. So I could say, can I say S0 equals a capital H? Is this going to work? And this is where I'm going to say it's not. Because you can't, a string is immutable. This is a string, but you could also treat it like a list, but strings are immutable. You can't change a string. You can't set that little h to a big H inside that string. What you could do, if you wanted, you could create a new string, and you could say S1 equals, you could say like H plus, like that, 2 strings, and that will, and that will concatenate those 2 strings together. You can do that. But this type of string is immutable, okay? And just to show you, let's create numbers again for a second. 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And I wanted to change numbers sub 4 equal to 10. First, let's print out numbers. If I just type this, it comes out. Just going to show you what it looks like. And then if I say numbers sub 4 equals 10, now if I do numbers again, now I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. So that list is mutable. I've changed it. Okay. All right, so we're looking right here, right now. So I tried to assign a capital H to that, and it failed. So you just have to remember that strings are immutable, so are numbers. You can't change the number 5 to the number 10, for example. If you just, not a good example, but just remember strings are immutable. And now we have some errors when we start trying to type in indexes into a string. So what can anybody think of an error you might get when I try to do something with this list right here? What if I tried to print numbers sub 7? If I said numbers sub 7, what would that do?
Would that cause like an error?
That's an error, yeah. If I said numbers sub 7, so sub 7 would be out here somewhere, right? 5, 6, 7. There's not.
Trace back.
It should give you an index out of range. You guys can try it.
Index out of range, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the errors you're going to get in this homework. You're going to try to access an element of a list that's out of the range, okay? So this is index error. Index error, out of range. So this is the type of stuff I want you guys to write up when you get an error, just say index error out of range. That's good enough. So if you're gonna get that a lot if you try to access an element of the list that's not within the range. So let's try it. So I got my numbers here, right? Numbers. Okay, so if I say numbers 7, index error, list index out of range. Okay, so that's the error I'm getting right there, and it happens on line 1. Which line 1 is just this line in this case, okay? I wanted to show you guys something, I think I showed you before. We've created, I think, 1 variable so far. If I want to type dir, the directory, and left and right this function, left and right parens, I can see all of the variables I've created so far. So I've created, all the ones with double underscores are built in.
That's
But-
what I confused with Len earlier.
But here's one I created numbers, I also created S, and I also created S1. So I have 3 variables sitting in my memory right now. Okay. So if I type dir, that shows you that, okay? Now let's look at, what was my next topic here? Let's see. Oh, I think it's concatenating lists, okay. So now we are appending to a list. Okay, so we're moved up to this one. So if I have a blank list here, we're appending to a list using this plus equal, which means, can anybody tell me, does anybody remember what that means? The plus equal? Wolfie. Augmented assignment, excellent, good. So we're going to use this a lot. You can append to a list using an augmented assignment. So you can first set, we're going to call it a list equal to a blank list, and then we're going to say for number in range 1 to 6, and you guys remember what this is. It starts at 1 and goes up to 1 minus the second number, right? So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it's going to say a list plus equal the list number, okay? So let's try that. Can I erase this thing? Okay, so we're going to create an empty list, and then we're going to build it up from a blank list
Does this apply to immutable stuff? Sorry.
to what?
Immutable stuff like strings? Can you append to the list?
Um,
Can I make hello say hello?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. Actually, it might. The same thing might work. You're right. With a string. So let's look at a list first. So we got a list. So we're going to create an empty one. This is the way you create an empty list. Just 2 square brackets. And we want to put 5 things in there. So we're going to say for I in range, and we could say, if we wanted to say 5 things, we could just say 5, which would go 0 to 4, but we want to start with 1 and go to 5. So we say 1 to 6, remember? It goes from 1 up until 1 minus this one. And now we're going to use the augmented assignment. We're going to indent, and we're going to say a list plus equal I. Oh, are they using I? They're using number. We'll use I. Plus equal I in square brackets. Okay? So we're saying this is a list. We're going to be appending another list, a little tiny list to it. Right? So the first time through, a list is going to look like this. I'll say the value of I and the value of a list. And we'll do a manual debug of this thing. So I's, at the beginning, A list is gonna be empty, and I is gonna be 1. And after 1 times through, it's gonna say 1. And then I becomes 2, and then A list becomes 1, 2. It gets appended to. And then 3, and then this becomes 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4. It just keeps adding to the end. And then we get to 5, and then A list becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is appending to a list using an augmented assignment. Hello. Okay, so let's give that a shot. I'll pull it up so you can see that actually works. And you guys could be testing all this stuff out while we go over it if you want. Let's see, A list, make an empty list. I'll just make sure it's empty. There it is. Okay, so I'll say for I in range 1 to 6, indent 1, A list plus equal sub I. Okay, hit return. It's going to run now. A list. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in it. So that's kind of a cool way to create a list of 5 elements with the for loop, right? Now, if the right operand contains multiple elements, the augmented assignment appends all of them. Okay, so what we mean is if the right operand, so this is the operator, this is the right operand. If this thing has multiple elements, it appends all of them. Okay, so the example we're giving here is letters. We start out with letters being a blank list, and then we say letters plus equal Python, the string Python. Here's where we get to your string. So let's see what happens there when we do an augmented assignment of a string to a blank list. So we say letters, let me let you in here. So everybody's logged in. Letters equals a blank list. Okay, so we got letters, just blank, and then we say letters plus equal the string Python. What's that thing? Isn't that cool? So it broke it into a list of the letters. And now I can get to each letter if I want. So this would be letters sub 0, letters sub 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I said print len, length of letters, how many letters or how many elements are in this list now?
6.
6, right. Is this homogeneous or heterogeneous? Homogeneous, because they're all of type
3.
string. Yeah. Good. Good. Everybody following so far? Okay. We can also concatenate lists with the plus sign. Where's my mouse at? Come here. Okay. So we can create list 1, and it's got a heterogeneous 3 integers, 10, 20, and 30. And then we can create list 2, which has 40 and 50. And then we can create a new list, concatenated list equals list 1 plus list 2. So this plus sign now is not adding mathematically, it's concatenating the 2 lists together. And that's going to create a brand new list that's got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, so let's try that real fast. See if I'm right. So list 1 equals 10, 20, 30. List 2 equals 40 and 50. So you can just print out list 1, list 2, and then I can say concatenated equal list 1 plus list 2. concatenated list. And there you see it, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So it just put the two lists together, just added them together. Appended the one to the end of the other one. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And now we have another homogeneous list with all integers. And how many elements in that list?
5.
5, yeah. Good. Okay, I think you guys are catching on. So we can concatenate, and then this is just another way to print out that. We're saying, if I wanted to print out the index and the value, I could use this little for loop here. I could say for I in range, the length of the concatenated list, which is 5. We know that's 5, right? Print I, which is going to start at 0, and this is a formatted print. And then we're going to print concatenated list sub I. So that's going to print 0 followed by a colon, and then the element that's at index 0, which is 10, and then index 1 is 20, and so on. Okay. I'll do that real fast for you guys and show you that it actually works. For I in length, let's see, range, sorry, length, concatenated list. This way we don't have to know what the length is, you can pass anything in there. We happen to know it's 5 just because we built it. Then I'll do a formatted print, put an F here, I'm going to print I, which started 0, colon, and then concatenated list, sub I. In formatted print. And then now it's printing the index followed by the actual value. So 0 is 10, 1 is 20, 2 is 30, 3 is 40, 4 is 50. Okay? So that's just an example of formatted printing and adding two lists. Now we can look at comparing lists using the double equal sign. So let's take a peek at that. We know, let's do a DIR, see how many variables I've got in here. I've got list 1 and list 2. There's list 1 and list 2. Let's say, is list 1 equal to list 2? What do you think that's going to return?
False.
False? Yeah. Okay. Let's make a list 3, and we'll set that equal to 10, 20, 30. Now if I say, is list 1 equal to list 3? That's true, because list 1 and list 3 are the same. Okay. Let's add one other number. Let's add something to the end of list 3. Let's add 40. Okay. So we'll say list 3 equals list 3 plus 40. Let's add that to the end. So now list 3 is like that. List 1 is like that. So they're almost the same except for the last number. Let's compare them again. List 1 equals list 3. Think they're equal or not? So they're false, which says that these are not equal. So you can compare lists using this, or I could say, I could use the not equal comparison, which is the bang equal. Is list 1 not equal to list 3, and that should return what?
True.
True, yeah. They're not equal. Okay, so we got comparing lists. Okay, so we got some more with lists down here further, but we're going to look at tuples now. So any questions about lists so far? We covered all this stuff right here. Any questions? Yes. Everybody's following that okay? We'll take a break here in about 15 minutes. All right, good. So everybody's followed. We can store homogeneous or heterogeneous data. You can access the elements by using an index. You can use negative indices to access the end. Okay, you can determine a list length using the length, len function. Lists are mutable, means you can change it. Some sequences are immutable. For example, a string cannot be changed. You can get out of range index errors if you try to access an element that's outside the range of the index. You can append to a list using the augmented assignment. If the right operand contains multiple elements, the plus equal, the augmented assignment appends all of them. We saw that with this Python. You can concatenate two lists together by just using the plus sign. Okay? And you can compare lists using the equals, the double equals comparison, or the not equal. Okay? So let's look at tuples now. Tuples are very similar. Okay? They're sequences, but they're separated by commas, but they're surrounded by parentheses instead. Some people pronounce it tuple, doesn't matter, tuple, tuple, either way is okay. Think about quintuple. If you're going to say the word quintuple, you would pronounce it tuple, right? But what about this word?
Quadruple.
You would say quadruple in English. So that would be tuple instead of tuple. So
Maybe
either
it
way you
depends
say
on
it is
how many
okay.
you've stored.
What's that?
Maybe it depends on how many you've stored.
Well, they say the official one is, it doesn't matter. You say it however you want. Tuple or tuple. I like tuple. So let's look at tuples now. They're almost the same. Here we have a student tuple. We'll make an empty one. We just call it student underscore tuple. And we'll just put two left and right parens. So that's an empty tuple. Okay. We can pack a tuple, which means assign values to it. So now we can say student tuple equals John, Green, and 3.3. Okay, so the string John, the string Green, and the floating point 3.3. So this will assign 3 elements to this tuple. This is homogeneous or heterogeneous?
Hetero.
Hetero, right? Because we got 2 strings and a float, right? So tuples can store homogeneous data or heterogeneous. Tuple indices start at 0. So if I were to print student tuple, what it would print out would be, it would look, whenever you print one, it prints with the parentheses. So it would say John, and then Green. I guess that's John's favorite color, and then maybe that's his favorite floating point number. Prints it out like that. Okay, so the index for the first element is 0, the index for this is 1, and the index for that. So these are the indexes, or indices for multiple. Okay. So if I wanted to print out Green, how would I do that? Student tuple, sub what?
Sub 1.
Sub 1, yeah. That's going to print out the string Green. Okay, so tuple indices start at 0. A singleton, okay, so if you have one tuple, which is called a singleton, you can create it, but you need to put a comma there. So, let me delete this here. Otherwise, it's gonna turn into a string. I'll show you right now. So let's create a singleton, meaning it just has one element. Singleton. I'll say tup equals, what I could do is say, and you don't, when you create these, you don't have to put the parens. You can do it without the parens if you want. So I could say red, a comma. Gotta put that comma right after that. So that's gonna create what we call a singleton, meaning a one element tuple, but it does have a comma in it. So let's try that just so you can see what happens if I don't put the comma in there. Singleton tup equals red, followed by a comma. Okay? So if I print this out now, you can see it prints out with left and right parens. That tells you it's a tuple, or I can type singleton, tuple, and it says class tuple. Okay, but what if I left out the comma and I just said singleton tup equals red? Then I print it out, and it's just a string. If I do type, now it's a class string. So if I left the comma out of this, it just creates a variable that has the string red. But if I leave this comma in here, it creates a singleton tuple. Okay? Okay. Concatenating, okay. We can concatenate tuples too, just like we did with lists. So here we have tup 1, it's got 10, 20, and 30, and we have tup tup 1, okay, here we go. Tup 1 plus, this is the augmented assignment. Now we're adding 40 and 50, another tuple. You can concatenate, they have to be tuples. And then you come up with a new tuple, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So the augmented assignment works the same way. Okay. Okay, let's try that. Just make sure you guys can see it in action here. So we have tup 1. Nothing yet. Okay, tup 1 equals, and we could just say 100, 200. All right, oh, it's 10, 20, 30, right? So tup 1, there's our tuple. And then we can say tup 1 plus equal, and now we can add 40, 50 to that. Now we have tup 1 should have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay. So you can see the augmented assignment adds more. And then you can do length on the tuple. Tup 1. There's 5 elements. You could print out the tup 1. Let's print out 2. So 0, 1, 2. That should print out 30, right? Yeah. But here's where tuples are not mutable. So I don't think, let me try this. If I say tup 1's 2, I want to change the 30 to 33. See if that works. Yeah. So tuples are not mutable, like lists are. I could have done this if this was a list in square brackets. If these were square, that'd be a list. But since it's a tuple, I can't change the second index, 0, 1, 2. I can't change that 30 to a 33. It says tuple object does not support item assignment. Okay, so you can't, tuples are immutable. Let's see. You can add a tuple to a list, okay, which is kind of cool. So here we have a list, going back to lists again, we have a list called numbers 1, 2, 3. And then we want to do the augmented assignment of this tuple, 4 and 5, to the end, and it does it. So you can add a tuple to the end of a list, which is cool. And then this is called unpacking a tuple. So this is called packing, what we did here. Basically it's like packing a suitcase. We're adding things to it. Unpacking is taking things out of it and assigning them to variables. So we could say, let's try this. We could say F name, comma, color, comma, my float equals student tuple app. This is called unpacking. So we're taking the values of the tuple and we're assigning them to these variables. So this now becomes John, string John. This one becomes the string green. And this variable becomes the float 3.3. So that's kind of a cool way to assign, to take all the values out of a tuple and assign them to variables. Just all in one line. Boom, 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 boom. So that's unpacking a tuple. In this example here, we had a tuple that had a string and then a list. So this is totally heterogeneous data. It's got a string and a list as an element. So we're saying first name, comma, grades equals student tuple. So grades now is going to be this list. Okay. Now, if we do it like this with a string, you guys probably didn't know this. You could say first, comma, second equal the string high. That's going to break this string. It's going to treat it like a tuple. And first is going to get the H, and the variable second is going to get the I. So that's kind of a cool way to break a string into multiple variables. Right, so let's try a couple of those, and I'm going to give you guys a break. Let's try to, what didn't we do yet? Let's unpack tuple. Let's see what do we have in here. Okay, we have tup1, right? All right, and we have, what's S? Oh, hello, okay, good. What's S1? Oh, hello. Okay. Oh, and we have a singleton tuple, right, okay. And what's a list? That's a list, okay. So we have tup1, there's our tuple, so let's unpack it. And we'll say num1, num2, num3, n4, n5 equals tup1. Okay. There's 5 things, 5 elements. And then n1 is 10, n2 is 20, n3 is 30, n4 is 40, n5. Now let's try something else. Let's rerun this command. What if I say this? N1, 2, 3, 4 equals tup1. What do you guys think that's going to be? This is one of your questions for tonight. You're trying to unpack 4 tuple values, but the tuple has 5. Think that's going to work or not? How many think it's going to work? Okay. How many think it's going to fail, give an error? Yeah. You're right. Too many values. All right.
Oh,
So-
there's too many.
Question? Okay, so let's take a peek at what's due tonight again. Okay, now that you've learned a few things, look at this first question. I'm trying to unpack this tuple, and how many elements are in this tuple? 3, right? And I'm trying to unpack them into 2 variables. Right? So that's going to give an error. How about this? Here's a list of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm trying to access numbers sub 10. Index out of range, right? Right, because there's not 10, that'd be way out here. Here's a name, which is a string. Strings are mutable or immutable?
Immutable.
Right. So can I set that little a to a big A?
No, it'll be an error.
Error. So you've already learned how to solve a lot of these questions. How about this? We've got numbers lists with 5. Now I'm trying to access numbers 3.4. Is that a valid index?
No.
No. The indexes are always integers. Okay. Here's a tuple with 1, 2, 3 elements, 2 strings and a list. And I'm saying student tuple 0 equals Ariana instead of Amanda. Are tuples mutable or immutable?
Immutable.
Immutable. I can't change that. Okay. So look, after everything you've learned already, you're already able to answer the first 5 questions. 7 more to go. So yeah, just take a break, come back about 5 till, and then we'll keep going over a little bit more stuff. Okay? I don't want your heads to explode with too much information.